Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome everybody to day 3. Subhanallah, a whole week of being with you guys. It's been so amazing, and I hope that you guys have joined us every single day and learnt a lot as we have. MashaAllah, we've enjoyed having you all here. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Anjum. Welcome back. And it is my pleasure today to introduce Sister Kathryn Jones. Most of you know Sister Kathryn Jones because she's super famous in the world of parenting, mashallah, and she does a lot of work with parents, and she runs her own Back to the Fitrah Academy. She is from Australia, and that's why we are joining her super early this morning. So I hope that everyone has managed to wake up and get ready for this, because this live is going to be so full of fantastic information. And Sister Kathryn's mission is to make a difference in the Muslim world by empowering Muslim adults and children to realize their potential through learning about the innate resilience and mental health that all human beings possess. She goes to the source of misunderstanding that prevents people from recognizing recognizing in their wellbeing, their Fitrah. She is the founder of the Back to the Fitrah Academy, dedicated to the development of certified facilitators and mentors of the Back to the Fitrah suite of programs across the globe. And Kathryn's combination of formal and informal education, along with personal and professional experience, give her a unique perspective and approach to the topic of emotional and spiritual resilience. MashaAllah. And I've had the pleasure of talking to Sister Kathryn a couple of times now, right? We've had a couple of nice, MashaAllah, chats. And just every time I come back, I just feel so mentally uplifted. I was like, please come for Ramadan. Alhamdulillah. It's so lovely to see you. Just, MashaAllah, your presence, I think, brings a lot of barakah as well. Walaikum salam, Sister Adila. Now, it's the same rules as before, so just pop your questions in the comments and just let us know. Sister Kathryn, I'm going to let her go, and she'll talk about obviously the topic today, and then inshallah we will answer your questions towards the end. All right, sister? Shall I put you solo now?
Yeah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu salam wa rasulullah. It's just such a pleasure to be here today and speaking on the topic of sweetening our tongue for Ramadan. And the reason I chose this topic is because it's something that is actually part of my project for this Ramadan, inshallah. So I want to share with you the way I'm looking at sweetening my tongue this Ramadan, and hopefully the fact that I tell you all about it and share it all with you makes me even more accountable to implement this year, inshallah. So where did this idea come from? A few weeks ago, my husband was preparing the khutbah for Friday prayer at an Islamic center that he does the khutbah at. And he was saying to me, what do you think of the topic where we look at stopping something for Ramadan? So usually we're thinking about what extra good deeds can we do? And that is usually my focus too, how we're going to up our game in that way. But when he mentioned the idea of what are we going to stop, it's about the things that we know we're doing that we really know we shouldn't be doing. And so he was wanting to tackle things like the fact that we have a lot of our ummah, smoke cigarettes, and that maybe they can give up cigarettes, and that would be the perfect month, to get rid of that habit. But what came to my mind was backbiting as soon as he said it. And it's probably because smoking is one of those things that originally was makruh, but it then became haram because it's harming yourself. But we know backbiting is actually one of the major sins in Islam, and yet it's one of the things that is the easiest thing for us to do. It's so easy to slip into it. And so the topic today is not just focused on backbiting, and I'm not going to get into all the religious talk around this. I'm going to get into the how part, because one of the things that I have learned over the years of teaching, I started teaching at Chat Islam, I think it was in 2005. And one of the things that would always come up over and over and over again was, yeah, I know we're meant to do this, but how? Like, so I know I'm meant to be patient with the first strike of calamity, but how? I know I'm not supposed to get angry, but how? I know I'm not supposed to backbite, but how? Because it's so easy, isn't it? It's just so easy to fall into saying things that just aren't okay, and especially when we're upset or angry. So I thought I would share some of the things that we teach at Back to the Fitrah that are part of the solution to this, but also the perspective I'm looking at it in order to sweeten my tongue this Ramadan. Now, I don't tend to be much of a gossip and backbiter, but I'm human and I do slip up like everybody does, especially if I'm feeling resentful or upset about something. And so there's always work we can do in this area. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that the tongue is one of the things that's really going to drag us into the hellfire. So it's such an awesome topic. So the first thing that I'd like to share with you is, I guess, the key to what we teach is, and because I've mentioned feelings a lot here, and feelings perhaps being one of the causes of backbiting, is that our feelings are coming from our thought, the way we're thinking about things. It's not about what's happening. It's not about what people have said or done to us or said or done to others. It's actually the way we're thinking about it that creates our feelings. And from that feelings then comes the behavior, comes the reaction. So it's actually a step-by-step process. But one of the things that we find it hard to notice is when it goes from feelings to behavior so quickly, there isn't that gap in the middle to choose to do something differently. And obviously, sometimes when we're upset, we can slip easily into saying something about somebody in that moment, and it sort of all happens really quickly. So the first thing that we teach at Back to the Fitrah Mentoring Academy, other than being accountable for our own well-being and our responsible for our own feelings and our own behavior, is that we all have a choice between that thought and feeling and the behavior to choose to do what is pleasing to Allah rather than to do what either comes from autopilot in the moment or feelings from our ego, from our desires, all those other things, shaitan encouraging us to do something that's displeasing to Allah. And I really see life being quite simply that is the test. The test is in every given moment, in that space between the thought and feeling and the behavior, is making the choice to do and say what's pleasing to Allah. And I see it really that simply. Now, you might say, yeah, but it doesn't even look like there's a space there. And it's true. When our minds are thinking so rapidly, which most of us are, we live in this information era where we're just churning, thinking so fast. Research says we have around 70,000 thoughts in a day. That's an awful lot of thinking, right? No wonder we get tired. But the beautiful thing is that when we can become present in this moment, that gap, when our mind slows down, that gap becomes quite present, and it gives opportunity to make a good choice, to do what is pleasing to Allah in the moment. And that gap increases as our mind slows down, as we become more mindful, as we become more present in the moment. And that's one of the core things that we work with people at Back to the Fitrah Mentoring Academy, is to help them have that peace of mind so that they have that choice in that moment. So we have this saying, when emotions kick in, or when our thinking gets a bit out of control and it kicks in, is, because it always does pass, is put your hands in your pockets and zip your lips. It's something that we learned from one of our mentors, and I thought that's so awesome because it fits beautifully with how the Prophet ﷺ said he is not one of us who the people are not safe from his hands or his tongue, right? So if we have this is a really simple recipe for making sure we don't do something that displeases Allah, is when we know we're not in our good mind, if we know that we've got feelings going on, something that's getting in the way of us actually being really present in the moment and calm and mindful and thoughtful, then we just put our hands in our pockets and we zip our lips. And then when we find ourselves back in what we coin our wisdom, back into that calm state, then we can unzip our lips and take our hands out of our pockets because everyone's safe from us, right? And that's actually more than just people being safe from us, but we become safe from displeasing Allah, because when we're in that wise, calm state, then we can make good choices. We have that gap, that moment where we can choose to be pleasing to Allah. So that's kind of in general, because that's not just about the topic of the tongue and how easy it is to slip into talking about people. So the next thing that I want to share with you is what we've kind of talked about as in low level and high level thinking. So low level thinking, which I think we're probably all very familiar with at times, is the thinking that goes along the lines of, that's not fair, why me, all the sorts of thinking that has us, firstly, very stuck in this dunya, secondly, not able to see beyond what's the trouble in front of us, and losing a sense of hope. We're definitely not in our state of tawakkul, putting our trust in Allah. We're not in our state of accepting the qadr of Allah. We're not in that really Allah conscious state of taqwa at all. We're caught up, churning in our mind all the negative thoughts, those thoughts that spiral. So we have, for instance, jokingly labeled a type of thinking called divorce thinking, which is when we're coaching someone within our group, right? And they're talking about how their husband's done this or that or the other, you know, in a coaching context, of course, not in a backbiting context. And they've lost, you know, sight of the beautiful human being that he is, and all they can see is he disrespected me, or he, you know, he wasn't very thoughtful, or he doesn't care about me, or that low level thinking. And it goes down the path of what we call the divorce thinking, which is like going from that thought of, oh, he doesn't respect me, right through to, well, where do you think the kids are going to live? Where will I live? And that's what we call the divorce thinking. It happens so quick. We just get on this train of thought and boom, we're gone. So that low level thinking is what leads us, you know, down those paths, down those what we call dark rabbit holes, where things don't look very hopeful. They certainly look fairly hopeless, and you can get into a state of despair or depression. But if that thinking has been kicked off by an experience of someone or learning something about someone, it can definitely lead into a state of backbiting. And the Prophet ﷺ taught us backbiting. Backbiting is anything that we say about someone that's not in their presence that they would dislike. And when he was asked, well, what if it's true? He said, well, if it's true, it's backbiting. If it's not true, then additionally on top of that, you're lying, and it's called slander. So even if it's true, it's not okay for us to say something that might displease the person we're speaking about. Now, if you think about that, it means that it's pretty easy to fall into backbiting. So what I realized is if I start reflecting, noticing my low-level thinking about people right at the beginning, if I don't entertain that thinking, then I'm less likely to fall into the trap of backbiting. And it's really that simple. So if I can, in that moment, I notice myself thinking, that person shouldn't have done that, or that person should have done that, or how awful is it that that person did that, or any of that sort of thinking around another person, that I catch myself at that point, before I've gone down the rabbit hole, at that point, and ask myself, how can I think about this from a higher level? So I give you an example of how easy it is to do this and not even realize that this could be considered backbiting. So the other day, I was driving with somebody, and I'm not going to identify anyone here, but we were driving past, and there was a Muslim woman in hijab, and she was walking a dog. And the person I was with said, now I've seen it all, what's happening to the Muslims. So that's the beginning of low-level thinking, right? Because already there's a judgment being made. And I could have been tempted to join in with that thinking. And we could have had a whole discussion where we ended up talking about all sorts of people and all sorts of problems and everything like that. But because I've been thinking about this particular topic, I actually thought about it, and I thought, well, there could be a number of reasons why she is walking a dog that don't necessarily mean that she owns a dog. For instance, maybe she has an elderly neighbor, or a neighbor is sick, or maybe her neighbor is in quarantine for COVID or something like that. And so she's walking the dog because the dog needs exercise. It's still a creation of Allah. And we already know that the woman who gave water from her shoe to a dog was granted paradise for that gesture. And so she could actually be doing a good deed. She may not even own the dog. So that's the example of how you can go from low-level thinking, which in this particular case, because we have no clue who this person is an assumption. And a lot of what we get low-level thinking on is coming from assumptions that we've made. We see things, we jump to a conclusion, we totally believe that what we've concluded is true and accurate, and don't even see any other possibility. And now we've gone down this path of low-level thinking that can lead us to potentially saying something that would displease that person if they knew that we had said it. And so it really becomes that simple, is reflecting and noticing when we're stepping into that space of thinking in a low-level way about somebody, anybody, doesn't matter who. And when we do, checking in and thinking, how can I think about this from a high level? How can I think about this in a different way? so that it's not low level thinking. And then that way we're less likely actually to fall into the trap of actually saying something that could be deemed backbiting. So that's the mindset shift, right? I said the mindset shift that will sweeten the tongue for Ramadan. The mindset shift is to shift from low level thinking to high level thinking, and to reflect. And so I'd love to challenge any of you out there to join me this Ramadan. I've decided this Ramadan that this is going to be one of my personal projects. And what I wanted to do, because I heard a lecture this morning that was talking about the 4 evils that we have to worry about. And it was shaitan, the dunya, our nafs, and hawa, so our ego and our desires. And in this lecture, they were talking about it takes 40 days to have a new habit. And so the idea is there's 29 or 30 days of Ramadan. And so add another 10 days onto that. I want to develop a non-backbiting habit. Catching myself and moving from low-level thinking to high-level thinking habit. And it's very possible. It's possible for all of us simply by just noticing the way our thinking is going, the direction we're going in our thinking before it reaches the point that we've gone down that rabbit hole, and next thing we know, we're backbiting. So I'd love to hear what your questions are, if you have any. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, sister. I'm just listening very intently. I almost forgot how to add myself back in. Mashallah. How interesting. This is such a lovely idea, isn't it? It's about changing the mindset. I like that. I wrote that down. The mindset shift to go from low-level thinking to high-level thinking. And we teach that a lot to the students. So obviously, when we think about it for ourselves, what does that mean for ourselves? This is obviously one of the ways that we can do that, isn't it? It's fantastic. I like that idea. My sisters came back from a talk once as well, and they said, give the person 70 excuses. So it's kind of like what you were talking about with the lady with the dog. Maybe it was this, maybe it was that, maybe it was that. And by the time you've thought of the excuses, then obviously you stop, that train of thought, like you said.
The mind has shifted. Yeah, the mind has shifted. It's that simple. Yeah. It's just the mind shift is one thought away. As soon as you even think of one excuse, you've already shifted.
It's fantastic.
It's that simple.
And I think, one of the things that I've realized is, okay, so I'll have to just share a teeny tiny bit of a story and then I'll get to the point that I wanted to make. So this year we've moved internationally. A lot of our followers know that. And one of the things that I had to do, just one second, I have to show this. It's very inspirational advice, mashallah. Thank you so much, Sister Kathryn. So one of the things that I had to do was stay in the UK without my husband around, right? So he was here and setting up, and I was alone over there with the kids. And the number of times that I thought, oh my God, if my husband was here, he would have done that. Or, little things that he would do for me that I completely used to disregard. And I'm completely honest about it. Since I've come back, I've been so thankful for him. And he's actually surprised sometimes as to how thankful I am. And we had a couple over for dinner the other day. And I was explaining to them, I said, look, if you want to appreciate your spouse, just stay away from them for a few weeks, Because, for me, it was almost 4 months. But that, like you said, it was a mindset shift that I had. I had a complete huge shift in there, because I went from, he does nothing for me, he doesn't look after, I can live by myself, it's no problem, I don't need a man, you know, that kind of thinking that I'm, you know, obviously I know
that kind of low level thinking.
yeah, I know it's wrong, but obviously, like you said, when you go down that route, you just continue and continue and continue. So I just wanted to pop that in there to say that, yeah, when I was sharing it with this couple, the man, you know, the husband, he was getting so excited. He was looking at his wife like, wow, you know, look, you know, husbands are useful. And and my husband actually said the same thing to him. He said, yeah, but even living without your wife is different as well. So it's just those things that I think, like you said, if we take it for granted and we always think, oh, it's always here. And then you just think, what if one day it's not? And then again, that mindset shift will help you to move on. So I just, mashallah, just amazing.
And you just reminded me of something too, because didn't the Prophet ﷺ say in his final speech that there'll be more women in the hellfire, and the reason being that we're not grateful? And one of the things that we recognized in one of the sessions that we did last week with my certification students was how that low level thinking builds into resentment.
Yes.
Like you were saying, he doesn't do enough for me, he doesn't do this for me, that becomes resentment. You can't feel resentment and gratitude at the same time.
No, yeah, certainly. So true. It's so true. And, you know, the idea as well, I think you mentioned as well when you were like, you know, it starts off with, you know, I can't believe you didn't bring me a glass of water when I asked you. And then after like 10 minutes, it's like, right, I'm going to divorce you. It's like from 0 to 60 in like 5 seconds.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then, you know, and you know that, you know, you don't want a divorce. You know, that's not what you want, right? And when everyone's calm and everything, you know, you just kind of apologize to each other. And I think that's another good point to make, that when you just take that off the table, that's something that I've learned, I think, over the years, that when you're like, listen, you know, for sure that's not going to happen. Alhamdulillah, you know, no one's abusing each other. It's not an abusive marriage. It's just, you know, discontentment. And, you know, I think we have to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the positions that we're in. And Sister Hussein Mujadidi yesterday, she said something similar, where it's like, maybe that's just your test in dunya. So maybe it's stressful, and maybe you're going through what you think is a huge problem, but that could be your that could be your test. So if you take things like that off the table, I think, like you said, it brings you more towards the gratitude mindset. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think that well, one of the things we teach, and the reason we call it back to the Fitrah, is that all these beautiful qualities already exist inside of us, and gratitude is one of them. So we're naturally grateful. We're innately grateful. The problem is it's all that thinking that piles on top of it that disconnects us from feeling grateful. And so if that thinking that you're talking about falls away, then naturally you're in a state of gratitude. So it's not about having a gratitude habit where you have to be grateful every day and write it all down or do something. Although, I mean, that does have a positive effect by remembering that. And we do that at the beginning of each of our sessions. We go around the room and what are you grateful for today? Because I think that it's really important that we keep remembering to be grateful. But the true gratitude, that true sense of just being grateful for every blessing, even though you can't count them, that Allah has given you, comes from when all that thinking falls away. That all that low level thinking, when it goes away, it's just like, oh, well, I'm so excited about my life. It's just amazing. It still could be as chaotic as it was before, but just grateful for the chaos, grateful for everything.
Yeah, you kind of find your own sort of way to deal with the chaos, isn't it? It feels chaotic, but at the end of the day, it's your chaos, it's your life. right?
What's your
Alhamdulillah.
test, especially for you? You know, Allah's prescribed each and every one of us our own personal journey, our own personal tests. And the way we see it is that each of those tests is to squeeze us to the next level, to squeeze us to be a better person. So when you look at it that way, again, it's another mindset shift. You can look at your test and you can go, oh, woe is me. Or you can look at your test and you go, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to be squeezed to the next level. And that mindset shift, that going from the low level to high level thinking, suddenly it's a completely different experience.
Fantastic. It's a really good way to think, alhamdulillah. Okay, so we've got a few questions in the chat. Sisters, if you have any more questions, please do keep popping them in. And I'm gonna put this one first just because it goes with what we were saying. Which is, sister, it sometimes feels challenging when you try to stay positive, but someone finds a way to bring you down. So how can we overcome this?
Yeah. So that's a great question, because it does feel like hard work to always stay positive. And that's not what we actually teach at Back to the Fitrah. We teach that our life and every single day is going to be a rainbow of feelings, and it's going to be good and bad feelings, although we're the ones that label them good and bad. But there's just going to be all the phases of feelings we can have even in one day, right? So if we go into that negative, positive, good, bad type thing, it becomes very much like hard work to have to try and stay positive. The way we look at it is, okay, I'm having some feelings right now. They're not great feelings. I'm not really enjoying them. But just like the clouds actually pass by the sun, once the clouds pass, the sun comes out. The same thing happens. Once the thoughts and feelings pass, I'm back into my happy state again, back into my calm state again, back into a feeling that I'm enjoying again. And so what we teach is not about trying to get yourself into a particular feeling, but to just be okay in the feeling that you're having in the moment, knowing that it's not going to last forever, that it will pass. And that actually feels so much easier, actually is so much easier than trying to stay positive. The other thing, part of the question was with people bringing you down. So there's something that we teach called separate realities, which it's too much to go through today, but just to give an idea, when you can actually see that the other person's reality is their own thought in the moment, that they're experiencing life through their own eyes, through their own experience worldview, and that you're experiencing it through yours, you realize you don't have to take theirs personally, because it's actually personal to them. It's not personal to you. And so you don't necessarily get brought down by other people, no matter how hard they try to bring you down, because you're comfortable in your own reality. You don't need to buy into theirs. That's I teach an hour-long session on that normally. That's just a very high level kind of snippet of it. But that's the solution to it, is being able to see those separate realities so that you don't take what they're saying or doing personally, because it actually isn't personal. It might feel like it, but it isn't.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think we have heard this sort of before, this idea about, and I think we again mentioned it this week. It was about not being on the same page, where people always say we need to be on the same page. Well, you actually can't be on the same page, because you've got your history where you've come from, and then they've got their history where they've come from. So to be honest, you might not even be in the same book, never mind the same page. So it's that idea of.
And when you truly understand that, you don't need to be on the same page. You can be on different pages and get along really well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes in co-parenting, we always think of co-parenting as, when they've split up or when they've divorced. But actually, we co-parent all the time. with our husbands, right? We are co-parenting, and it's his way when he's dealing with them and my way when I'm dealing with them. I might not agree with what he does, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? And I think that's another thing, isn't it? What do you think, Sister Kathryn, that mums, we feel like our way is the right way?
Oh, I think everybody thinks their way is the right way, not just the mums. I think that's where we get into the troubles, isn't it? Because, but I think that when you can understand that everybody has their way and that's okay, then it doesn't have to be who has the right way. It's not about right and wrong or who's to blame and who's not to blame. It just becomes about we're all different and we're all doing the best we can with the tests that we have and the life that we're living. And sometimes we do a really good job of it, and sometimes we don't do a really good job of it. And if we can be loving and compassionate to each other in the times when we're not getting it right, we're going to do a lot better as a human race, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. Sister Taskina said that, oh Allah, help me to remember you, to be grateful to you and worship you in an excellent manner. And she said that I remembered this dua as I was listening to your lecture. That's really sweet, mashallah. Thank you for sharing, sister. So I've got another two questions over here. Again, I think this relates to what we were talking about. So this is from Sister Camilla. I'm a new convert. However, my ex-family now hate me. May Allah give me joy during this path. Do you have any suggestions for her?
Okay. When she says ex-family, I'm not quite sure whether she means she was married and her ex's family, or whether she means her family, because if it's her family, then converting to Islam doesn't make them an ex-family. Being a convert myself, I wouldn't consider my family an ex-family. And in Islam, we're meant to treat our non-Muslim family with kindness and respect, and to do our best and maintain those ties of kinship with them, even if they're not happy with our choice. So I'm not entirely sure in answering that question what she meant by ex-family. I think the best advice I can give is, in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires for us to maintain the ties of kinship. That doesn't mean that we're at fault if it's not reciprocated. It just means that we can't let go of that tie, and we must always do our best to maintain it in one way or another, even if it's sending a letter, a card, or an email or a message and not getting a reply back. At least you're doing your part. And yes, that can be painful to experience that, but at least that you're doing what's required of you for the sake of Allah. And you just never know, you make dua, like supplicate to Allah for Allah to soften their hearts so that you can once again have a good relationship with them. And I know for some people that can be very very testing and very challenging. So I think it's also really important to have good support around you. So finding some good Muslims in your community that can be there and a support for you, because it could be very lonely having lost, the family around. I'm just going to assume she's talking about her family. It is hard. It's awkward even now for me. I've been a Muslim 27 years now, and there's certain topics, if I bring them up to do with Islam, my mum just doesn't really want to talk about it. She would probably still prefer me not to be a Muslim, but I think she's given up on the fact that I'm going to change my ways at this stage.
There's a point where she's like, all right, it's okay, I'll choose a different battle, but subhanAllah.
I think that there comes a point in time where, people have to choose. Some people can't get past their thinking. Again, it's a thinking problem, right? They can't get past whatever their thinking is about Muslims. And I can tell you there's some pretty strange views of who we are out there because of the rhetoric that's spread out there. So you can't blame a lot of them because the filter that they're looking at us through makes us look pretty weird.
Yeah, I agree. It's because, again, we look at this like media kind of picture that's shown or depicted. And, you know, I mean, not to get into politics, but obviously what's happening right now, it's like they're people just like us. They're middle class people. Hello, what do you think everybody else was in all the other wars, right? So in that way, you can kind of, it's funny, but it's how media has actually shown us clearly what they do by this example, right? If it wasn't clear at any other time in the world, in the history of the world, right now it's absolutely clear. So we as well, I feel like we as Muslims as well need to be a little bit more, I would say, accepting and maybe you know, encompassing of other people as well. Again, we tend to stick in little groups, you know. Again, I don't know if Sister Kathryn, you noticed that, but with a few of my friends here that have converted, because we live in a Muslim country, so they've obviously learned about Islam and, you know, realized how amazing it is, but then they find this isolation because they don't feel accepted within their own community where they came from, and then they don't really feel accepted in the born Muslim community either, and it's so difficult. And a lot of them, I think, they make their own community. Like, I think there's a famous masjid in Norfolk in England, and they're all, mashallah, Rifa Muslims, and they've got their own little community going on, which, again, they shouldn't have to do that. I think it should be, you know, whatever you are, you're a Muslim, just come join me. Here we are, you know, and maybe we can, as mothers, kind of encourage that with our children, and maybe show them, give them good examples, inshallah. What do you think, Sister Kathryn?
Well, I certainly understand that not fitting into any camp, and got to the stage now where it doesn't bother me. But what did come to bother me was witnessing my children not fit into either camp. That when they went to the public school, they were discriminated against for being Muslim, and when they went to the Islamic school, they were discriminated against because I was a white Australian. And so it didn't seem like I could win with my kids, and that was harder than for myself. But again, all of these things come down to low level thinking, right? And the solution starts with each and every one of us rising above that thinking. So we can get caught up in it's not fair that I don't fit in. I'm lonely. They should accommodate me. You know, all this thinking, or we can rise above it and understand that, well, that's obviously part of my test. And in the process of rising above it, suddenly discover that these barriers start breaking down, because what we haven't realized is our own thinking about it is also partially creating the problem of separation from others. Now, I'm not saying that necessarily everything shifts, because we have a mindset shift and, you know, transcend the low level thinking and start not worrying about those things. But a lot of things do change. A lot of people become more open-minded. I think we just become more confident because we're not worrying about it. We're not worrying what are they thinking or what are they saying about me or that sort of thing. We're just showing up and being. And that confidence breaks down some of the barriers, I think. Well, that's my experience anyway. I don't feel like I need to belong anywhere, nor do I feel like I specifically belong anywhere. if that makes sense. And I'm more than happy to show up in any group and just be with that group.
That's fantastic. I think some of us that are, we kind of have a bit of a experience of this as well. Like, for example, my grandparents are from Pakistan, but I've been born and brought up in the UK. So again, if you would consider me, what am I? Am I actually Pakistani or am I actually British? You know, there's this disparity again that you have. And like you said, you kind of find your tribe, you find the people that are happy with you and you're happy with them, and you have this kinship. I'm just going to go back to Sister Camilla, because she's just replied in the chat. So she said, all of her family, even her children, are having difficulty with her converting, even though I love them unconditionally. So basically, she's saying that her family doesn't want to be her family.
Yeah, so that's really tough. And we haven't got them running at the moment, but we do run a convert support group at Back to the Fitrah. So she's more than welcome to reach out to me if she wants to, and I can get her a link so that she can join our group and know of any activities that we run, because that's exactly why we run this group. So our group isn't about teaching people about Islam. It's actually an emotional and spiritual support group, just a place where converts can come and get that emotional and spiritual support without judgment. And yeah, it doesn't matter what background they're from or how long they've been a Muslim. So that's just one of our projects for that very reason.
I've just popped the link in the chat, sisters. So if you want to, is that the right one, sister? Yeah. Back to the Fitrah.
That's the website. It's probably easier to just put in admin at backtothefitrah.com to send us an email so that we can let them know the details. So,
okay, sisters. So I've just popped in the email address, admin@backtothefitrah.com. So you can email Sister Kathryn and the team, and inshallah they can help support you, because it is difficult for sure, and we do understand somewhat. So obviously, inshallah, we're there to help you, and Sister Kathryn, mashallah, is helping a lot. Also, I think it's nice if you find sisters that have possibly been through the same situation in some of the face groups that I'm in. I think there's a few like Muslim Sisters of the World, and they are kind of, I would say, reverts when they've had their family, they've had their kids, and now they've reverted back to Islam. So you might find some good friends there. Jamila Jones is a good one as well. We can send you her details. So the last question that I have somewhere over here is from Sister Ferdosa. Again, I think this is more of a long answer, but maybe if you can just give it a quick summary for now. She said, how to get over...
Yeah, sorry. I was reading it off the screen.
It's fine. Go ahead, sister. Read it.
How to get over narcissistic abuse that took my self-esteem away. Yeah, so I experienced that. I was married to one for 9 years and left that marriage emotionally totally closed down, physically just about dead, and spiritually hanging on to a thread. So I called myself a walking zombie back then. And it was really the fact that I had 3 young children that I kept going and wanted to get better from that, from the feeling that you're most likely feeling. I understand it very well. And it was a journey, but the short answer is make dua to Allah, because the whole time I didn't know what help I needed. I just asked Allah to help me. And every step of the way, Allah provided me the next step of the journey. So when I first left that marriage, it was working with a psychologist and going to this special group program that was for women that were in abuse. From there, I started longing for more about Islam, and so I so Allah guided me to some scholars that I learned under for a while, and so I went on an Islamic journey. Then eventually Allah guided me to parenting by connection, which was where a peaceful parenting and all started coming from. And then it led me to the inside out paradigm, which I have to say was the absolute solution to all of it, which is what we now teach from an Islamic perspective at Back to the Fitrah Mentoring Academy. So it's very possible. I think you could probably tell from listening to me that I feel confident, happy, calm, collected, have clarity about life, direction, all of that sort of thing, because I do. And so whatever I went through in the past, it doesn't affect me anymore at all. And it won't have to affect you forever either. It is, but the first step is make dua to Allah, because Allah will put before you who are the right people to help you. And Back to the Fitrah could be one of them if you're interested, because it was the solution for me. That's why I'm so passionate about what we do at Back to the Fitrah.
Absolutely. I've been looking quite deeply into Back to the Fitrah as well, inshallah, with the intention to maybe study one of the programs with Sister Kathryn, because I do believe in it. I've been looking through and it really does resonate with you, especially with the what I like what you do, where you match the kind of, let's say mainstream knowledge with Islam. That's what I really like. It's that matching, that it's like, okay, look, it doesn't have to be completely two separate ideas, because again, being brought up in this world with the Western education, we've been taught so many things, and sometimes when you're learning about Islam, it's like this is this and this is this, and they can never meet. But I think the idea that they can meet is really mind-opening for me. What do you think, sister?
Well, exactly. What we came across through understanding the inside out paradigm is the truth about our human experience. So it's the psychological paradigm of how we work. So of course it's going to fit with Islam, because Islam is the truth as well. So the truth and the truth is always going to fit together, isn't it? It's just a matter of being able to articulate it, which was what took time for us to figure out how to articulate that. So how do you take those concepts and articulate them from an Islamic perspective? And I think, we've got to a place now, alhamdulillah, where we articulate things mostly from an Islamic perspective rather than from a psychological perspective with Islam tacked on. And we've sort of flipped over now, and we approach things very much from an Islamic perspective. But as you could see by the way I spoke today, we like to speak in simple, very easy to understand terms, because we want everybody to have access to well-being. And we don't want to come with complicated terms and make it so difficult to be out of reach. We see ourselves as, well, the scholars can do that. We're not scholars. We don't even pretend to be scholars. We're brothers and sisters, because we have brothers in the program now too, in Islam, who are trying to, I'd say, emotionally and spiritually resuscitate our ummah. And then once they're resuscitated, we hand them over to the scholars, and the scholars can polish them.
That's brilliant. I like that, mashallah. It's so important though, because we are Muslims. We've been, for example, like people like me that been brought up as a Muslim, but then it's time to now teach that to our children. And we know the balance. We know that has to be a balance, because you don't want them to go completely against Islam. Like, we've seen people that we've grown up with do that, unfortunately, and it's so sad. Alhamdulillah, some of them do find their way back, it's true, But some of them, unfortunately, find it so difficult. So it's really important, I think, to get the balance of, motivating them, encouraging them, supporting them, and not kind of using it as some kind of, I don't know what the word is, maybe punishment or something. So yeah. Sister Firdosa said, Jazakallah khairan, sister. She's got 2 children, one with special needs, so it's so overwhelming trying to build up her self-esteem with that.
So what I would say about building up self-esteem is that actually her self-esteem is still there. All of the beautiful things that she is are still there inside of her. It's just been covered. Well, actually, I don't know whether you've seen the movie Back to the Fitrah, but there's the famous scene where the manure truck, or Biff's car gets the whole manure truck landed over the top of his car, right? I might be showing my age here, but the movie Back to the Future, Back to the Fitrah, it is still.
I was just going to say, you said Back to the Fitrah, but you meant Back to the Future. Yeah.
Back to the Future, yes.
I mean, watched it recently, so I know exactly
the movie
about.
Back to the Future with Biff and how
one.
Yeah, that's the one. And so basically, just to use a metaphor, that car was a beautiful car, right? But then it got covered in all of this manure, and so it obviously needed cleaning and detailing. I see that as a similar situation here. When someone's just been dumping their rubbish on you for years, which is essentially what she's experienced, that beautiful person is still there inside of her. It's just it needs cleaning and detailing because somebody's dumped all their rubbish on her for years, right?
That's absolutely true.
I like to put it that way because I want everybody to know they're not broken. They're not, that they're still the beautiful, amazing person inside. It's just been covered up by all the crap that they've been through. And yeah, once it's uncovered, then they'll be their beautiful self again.
MashaAllah. Sisters are saying that it's alhamdulillah. That's brilliant advice, mashallah. So just before we go, do you want to tell us all about parentingprofitsway.com? I'm so excited about this.
Yes. So our mentors, certified mentors at Back to the Fitrah Academy, we've put together the Parenting the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's Way Summit starting on Wednesday, inshallah. Tuesday, probably for those who are not in Australia, it will be Wednesday Australia time, but we're always ahead of everybody. So it'll, yeah. So it's a 5-day summit. We've got 3 talks on each day. Day 1, we are talking about being their rock, how it's important to be a resilient parent so that children have resilience. Day 2, we're talking about parenting beyond divorce, so all the topics of co-parenting and step parenting. Day 3, we are talking about parenting in an imperfect world, so it's all about the chaos, the tests and challenges that we're experiencing. Day 4 is about connection and compassion and the importance of that even when setting limits with our children. And so there's a lot about being a playful parent and stuff in there as well. And then the final day is parenting teenagers, because we get a lot of people going, oh no, when their kids get to the teen years. So we've got a whole day on teens.
We actually said that as well yesterday. There's just before the conference came on, just one second, my kid. Sorry. We actually said that, when you are having a baby, nobody thinks, by the way, this kid's going to grow up, right? No one thinks. You just think about the baby. You just think about the cute little clothes that you can buy and the small little whatever it is, bottle and whatever it is. But no one really thinks, actually, you know what? When this kid is 6-7 months old, he's going to start growing, or she's going to start growing. And I think that's really important that we start to think about that, maybe even before marriage now, but at least when the kids are young. And as long as we don't have this idea that, oh, teenagers is such a difficult time, yes, again, like Sister said, mind shift, change your mind shift. It doesn't have to be a difficult time. Is that right, Sister?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's what the talks on day 5 will really help them understand. And we have a panel discussion of 3 of us talking about troubled teens, because a lot of our teens are feeling troubled, and what can we do as parents, to help them navigate through those years. So my daughter, who's in the room here with me right now, she's my 6th teenager I've parented or parenting.
Inshallah.
So I've had plenty of experience on that topic.
That's fantastic. I can't wait, inshallah. So sisters, this was going to be on next week, parentingprofitsway.com. If you go there to sign up, inshallah, is that right? They sign up?
Starts in 3 days. Yeah. Parentingprofitsway.com to register.
Fantastic. Jazakallah khair, Sister Kathryn. I could sit here forever. MashaAllah, just really just enjoying this so much. And I know that our audience loves hearing these amazing talks as well. And I want to say Jazakallah khair. Thank you all to everybody that's joined us so far. This is the last day of our Ramadan spiritual retreat. We have one more talk at 2 p.m. today with Sister Naila, who's going to be talking about how to open those gates of Jannah, inshallah, in Ramadan. So please don't miss it, everyone. Please come back. And Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And anyone that sees the replay, please pop your comments, your questions, anything. We're in touch with Sister Kathryn. So if there's anything in particular you want to ask, then surely we are here. Jazakallah khair again, Sister Kathryn. Thank you so much for coming along. Would you like to have a couple of words to finish off?
Or I just thought it would be important to go back to our topic, because I think this topic of sweetening our tongue is really important for us women. I think that it's one of our biggest challenges. So just remember, it's a mindset shift to go from that low level thinking to the high level thinking. When you find yourself getting caught up in those thoughts, just pause, give yourself a moment to think about, how can I think about this differently from a higher level? And inshallah, that shift in thinking will keep our tongue sweet and moist with the remembrance of Allah, rather than the remembrance of hateful things about others.
It's brilliant, mashallah. We've got another quick question here. Will your Parenting Profits Way be on Back to Fitrah? So I'm assuming the sister or brother is asking if it's also going to be on your other channels.
Oh, that's Roni. She's one of our inner circle members.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Roni, it said us, I was like, maybe she, you know her.
Yeah, no, just message us, Roni. We can sort that out with you. But you do need to register at the link, because then you'll get the emails to let you know what's happening, and it will give you access to the membership area.
Yeah, that's fantastic. The thing is, I think that is actually important, sisters. When you join an organization like Parenting with Alabama Side, we can email you about the conferences or the things that you register for. But due to the laws of the country and the compliance laws, we can't email you direct, keep on emailing you about the timings and things like that unless you register for the actual conference. Is that what it is as well for you guys over there in Australia, Sister Kathryn?
Well, I think our laws haven't got as strict as yours at this stage, but because our academy is international, we've got to be mindful of all the laws. But yeah, the main thing is also the registration's required to actually get access to the membership area, so they can actually watch the videos that are in there.
That's fantastic. Inshallah, I'm looking forward to seeing you again then towards the end of the week. I don't know why I said next week. It's obviously Sunday today. I've forgotten what day it is even.
Yes.
But Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for coming, Sister Kathryn. And I'm sure that we'll have lots of questions coming your way later on. And Jazakallah khair. Have a lovely Ramadan.
Inshallah.
And may Allah look after us and make us all stay on the deen, inshallah. And let's see if we can do what Sister Kathryn said and change one habit. I love that idea. So maybe the couple of weeks before Ramadan and the whole of Ramadan, and then that's it. We've done, right? Inshallah. Okay, sisters.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Walaikum salam. I was just saying, Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.